I want to know, first of all, what your general feeling is of De Palma.
Initially, I thought he was kind of the bastard child of Hitchcock and Lizzie Borden. He tended to use a lot of Hitchcock and in fact use it too much. And of course, there's the gore and grizzle and big effects. But in Blow Up, I think it's a beautiful film. I think it is really almost, I don't want to say perfect, but he in Blow Up, that was a film where it really was personal. I mean, he grew up in New Jersey, so he knows the Philadelphia area. He's making major statements about technology, major statements about reality and illusion, appearance and reality, major statements about American, its history and its values, and he's on the edge in Blow-Ups in so many scenes, like that culmination when Jack is holding Sally and the fireworks go off behind. You say, that can't work. It's so corny. It's like Some Came Running when Sinatra held Shirley MacLaine, Ginny character. But it works. And the end of that film is just stunning. I think two films that I've left the theater almost stricken are Blow Up. I mean, I was exhilarated by it, but it is so bleak and hopeless at the end. And the other one being Bonnie and Clyde, where the whole audience left and there wasn't a word spoken. It was a crowded theater, and then at the end of Bonnie and Clyde, people don't see it in the theater anymore. They see it on television, where it really doesn't have the same impact. But those two films left me stricken. Now, it's my favorite film is Blowout. I like Untouchables. I certainly respect Serpico. Not Serpico. Scarface. Pardon me, Scarface. But I don't exactly go into the theater with the De Palma film saying, I trust what I'm going to see on the screen. But in Blowout, I just thought it was his absolute moment of truth.
I'm crazy about De Palma, and we've done a lot of tribute shows to him, and we had him on, and we've talked to a lot of people that worked with him. But Blowout is my favorite movie. I'm just like you, and I feel that it's a summation of a lot of stuff that he was working towards. And what's not pointed out a lot about De Palma's films is how political they are because of the genre he tends to work in. But I really see Blowout as kind of like the last of those great political conspiracy movies of the 70s. It just came out in 1981. It feels of that ilk to me.
Yeah, it was conspiracy, but I think part of it is Chappaquiddick, and part of it is certainly Nixon and Watergate. But to me, so many films that are conspiracy, and we talk about conspiracy, are not art. And to me, that this conspiracy, I think, is only a small part of it. What is so much bigger for me personally is the idea of liberty and what's happened to liberty. And now you can say that's conspiracy, but to me that's only one corner of it. The John Lithgow, terrible villain, is called the Liberty Bell Strangler, and he's wearing a button that says "I love liberty." And the film is, sometime watch it and watch how often he uses red, white, and blue. Right. He had two wonderful photographers. He had Vilmos Zsigmond, and then the Liberty Day parade. The footage was stolen, and Zsigmond wasn't available, so he was able to use the other Hungarian director who had come to this country with Zsigmond, Laszlo Kovac.
Yeah.
He used him to reshoot the scene, and there is so much symbolism that deals with America and the loss of values, and I think conspiracy makes it almost pigeonholes it.
Yeah, it makes it sound trivial. But when I said that, what makes it a great film of that type of genre is that it finds the depths of meaning within that conspiracy. It's more than a plot device. It's expressing something especially about that era where we enter the Reagan era, and there's a certain image in politics that we can't trust, but it's comforting. We want to buy into it, and I think that the ultimate what makes the ending of that film so haunting is that Travolta gives up. You know.
What makes it so haunting is that we've had appearance in reality, and here the appearance is the reality. It's an actual scream. I mean, it's just a shocking and incredible moment on the screen.
And she dies in front of an American flag. I mean, you can't.
Yeah. Oh no, the film is just full of that. I know Wanamaker's department store, and when Jack is speeding towards Penn's Landing. Also, I've been at the 30th Street station, which Zygmunt photographs beautifully. When I used to go to basketball games all the time in Palestra, I would be in there. I've certainly I've lived along the Schuylkill Expressway, which in Philadelphians called the Schuylkill Expressway, where the car goes off into the river. But when he goes into when he crashes into the window of Wanamaker's, this is just one small scene. He crashes in, and there's in honor of the Liberty Day Jubilee or whatever it's called, which there isn't, of course. It's fictional, but there is a patriot, and there's a noose in the exhibit in the window, and then he's hurt. Jack Terry is hurt. He's taken to an ambulance, and he's got a bandage on that makes him look like a drummer boy or something. He looks like he's been in the Revolutionary War, and he tears it off and then runs desperately to try and save Sally. But the film is just full of those moments of history, and they're compelling and even in that 4th of July celebration, I mean the fireworks and the crowd's cheers and all of that stuff, the celebratory nature of it is so heightened that it blocks out her screams, and even that can be taken as metaphorical. Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, that is symbolic. I agree. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And then there's the idea of the wire. The wire is a murder weapon. It's the strangler, but the wire is technology. He has the tape, but the tape is gone, and there's De Palma shoots it almost like the Conversation, Coppola's film. Mm-hmm. At one point, when we see loss and waste, and technology has not answered. Technology has failed us. Because Jack has initially caused the death of another agent because of the wire. The wire didn't work, and so he's haunted by his past and the country's past, and it's just an extremely complete and fulfilling motion picture for me. Well, De Palma, I mean, he took when he devised Blowout, he took Antonioni's Blow Up and The Conversation. Those were his 2 points of inspiration, and he did something completely unique and infused it with some deep sense of where we were at that time. But
And I think that's where he's best. Yes, he copies from Hitchcock quite a bit, but when he really works, what does he do with Hitchcock? Where does he take it? And when he's at his best, he takes it to another level.
There's a scene that's absolutely Hitchcockian, and yet it's one of my favorite images in the film. I shouldn't say favorite, but it really is. When the prostitute goes into the bathroom in 30th Street Station, and Lithgow, the killer, goes in next to her, the stall next to her, and then we see her red shoes, dangling and twisting, and you know that he's hung her. I mean, it doesn't have to say a thing. It's absolutely Hitchcockian, but it's Hitchcockian. You were saying about people accuse him of copying. I think almost every director who deals in any kind of suspense or any kind of effectiveness probably is influenced a little bit by Hitchcock, some more than others. When he uses the Hitchcockian, I think that he just uses it. He doesn't, at his worst, it doesn't have his originality, or maybe creativity is a better word. It doesn't have his creativity. And a lot of critics, it's easy to say, he's just another Hitchcock, because a lot of times he paid obeisance to Hitch. But you're right that when he makes it his own, as a good director does, and as a sometimes great director does, it becomes personal and individual and unique.
Yeah, I also like his visual flair, and that he almost, in a lot of his movies, you get the sense where that he wishes that he could get past all the scenes of people talking, so he could just tell the story with his camera, which is what a filmmaker is. I mean, that's essentially he's such a master of the visual language. I want to talk to you though about two more things concerning Blowout, and one of them is Travolta. I mean, this is known as one of Travolta's great overlooked performances, and a lot of people say one of his first adult performances.
Yeah, I think he's ideal. I mean, I don't have. There's not a moment when he changes. At the beginning, he's an exploitation photographer. I mean, soundman. He's for an exploitation company that makes horror movies or sex movies or whatever, and his beginning to care about the truth when the whole society doesn't care about it, he makes it believable. I think that he's been in so many films, and he has been knocked around, but to me that I was talking about the integrity of an actor. There he seems to hit it perfectly. There's a growth or a change or an evolution, but there's also, we never can stop identifying with him because he's after the truth. They say, somebody says, one of the politicians says, well, you can't tell it, and he says, but that's the truth, and we see where the truth leads him. The truth leads him at the end to futility. But yeah. I think that I can't think of a better actor, of a better performance, of an actor giving a better performance. And I think Sally was good. Here's another example. Like Mamet always married his actresses, or they acted, and he was married. De Palma was married to Nancy Allen when they made this film.
Right.
And that makes it personal too. I mean, there's a.
I think so too, but it was funny because we brought on Nancy Allen to talk about Blowout actually, and I'd never heard her say this in public. But De Palma's criticized for a lot of things, but one of them is that he's a misogynist.
Right.
And so I asked her about that, and she shocked me. She said, "Well, he is."
Oh.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so that was completely unexpected, but
that doesn't mean he may be a misogynist, but that doesn't mean that he can't find the truth and reality in the female actors, female characters. I mean, certainly he's a male-oriented, but I think he really understands Sally so much, and probably understands his wife, although nobody understands their wife. But I think that he is a misogynist, but that doesn't mean that there's not an ability to perceive the feminine spirit.
Yeah, and I think the genre that he worked in most. I mean, it was kind of a great ground to explore misogyny in a way. And then another genre, the war film, his Casualties of War.
Right.
There's so many kind of haunting moments in that movie. It really feels like the supreme violation, and it when you see images of that girl on the tracks before she's shot and killed,
right?
Oh my gosh, it's powerful. I just love De Palma, but also the element in the film in Blowout, the kind of the love of filmmaking, and how that's articulated by his retracing through the sound, the photos, the whole conspiracy with the actual blowout. There's a lot of
what's interesting is that it's balanced the love of filmmaking and the love of technology, but also the failure of technology. That technology so often doesn't deliver or winds up spinning out of control. And I think this is an auteur making a film and really involving himself in the very making of the film. Mm-hmm. So, I would agree with you that there's a film, but it's also the limitations of perception. That just because we read something or we hear something, or the Philadelphia Daily News calls him the Liberty Bell Strangler, he's a serial killer. Well, he's not a serial killer. He's a cold-blooded psychopath who's got a job to do, who thinks he has a job to do. But everything, so much of it is misleading. And it's interesting to watch this in concert with Blow Up, where there's the sense of the appearance of things, but the filmmaker is constantly trying to get at the reality of things. Sometimes does, sometimes doesn't, sometimes can't. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You don't sound like you believe that.
No, I absolutely do, and that's what we were discussing. The kind of image of what we're sold. That image kind of comforts us in a way, keeps us at a distance, but it hides what's really going on. And that search for the truth. And at the end of the film, he can't do it anymore. And you want to believe in Travolta so much. I think that's what's great about Travolta in the movie. I mean, he's a guy that you can believe in, and when he gives up, at the end, it's heartbreaking. It's really, I just adore that.
Well, we are hoping so fervently that he's going to arrive in time, and maybe he has, that he's going to save her, that we're not only going to be satisfied, we're going to be fulfilled, because it has worked out. It has satisfied our needs. And when Travolta is destroyed, we are certainly set back in the audience, and that scream at the end, the irony, and one of the things I like best in film, and one of the things that I think is probably disappearing from film today when you go back to the 80s and 70s and the 60s, is the great sense of irony. That there is. This is an ironic film, as so many of the films of that 30-year period were. That the Rafelson films were absolutely full of irony. That Jack Nicholson was the embodiment of irony, and that Blow Up has this. I can't think of a more ironic ending than the great explosion of pyrotechnics and fireworks, and the demise, the absolute forlorn futility of what's happened to Sally.
And the 80s, and this was another point that I've heard brought up in previous years talking about this movie. The 80s being kind of a decade defined by consumerism, and that film, this very real scream of death, and it's in the service of a grade Z horror film at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I told you before, I don't know whether I did, about teaching The Graduate or being with audiences when The Graduate came out in '67, and everybody cheered and thought that Benjamin, and I taught it during the 80s, and the students said, yeah, but where are their things? What are they going to do? Where are their things? And I also used the word, how many of you are anti-establishment? Nobody was in the 80s. And so Jack Terry still is.
Yeah. And that came at 81. That's why I think it's such a prescient political movie. I mean, it came at the very beginning of that decade, and it saw where we were going, where we were. It's a great movie. I feel like I could cry. I love that movie so much. So what have you, before I let you go, what have you seen lately that has you been struck by? Anything?
Yeah, House of Games from '87, and Blowout from '81. I have two pictures just two that I like a lot. A Game Change, which was on HBO.
Yeah.
And I'm a Hunger Games guy. I thought that Ross did a really good job in making a commercial motion picture. And I think you read my review on Goon. I liked Goon because I was just astounded by Scott's performance. I didn't know he was that kind of an actor. He had that quality. One thing I want to add to our discussion here is that the '87 was the first film that Mamet directed, and it also was the year of the last film that came out posthumously after the death of John Huston, The Dead, which is based on James Joyce's short story with his daughter Angelica. And so, '87 there was a gain and a loss that I wanted to at least mention.
I remember being in art school and our teacher showing us The Dead. That's John.
But did anybody in that class like it?
Probably not. I mean,
I don't think so. It was a really interesting experience for me because when I taught it, it's one of the films that was most hated that I ever taught. There was one Irish girl who said at the end of the term, "That's the best film we've seen this year." It just reached her. There was something about the experience. But it's a tough, hard film. But I don't think it's a failure. I think it just is so different, and so we have to really change our gears to get into it. We have to. But But he was a great director who passed 25 years ago.
And I don't know that, and I haven't watched that movie since then. This was probably 90. I saw it. So I need to revisit it. But I don't know that it was. We were at a point in our lives where we could appreciate the themes swirling around in that film necessarily.
Probably not. And you really do have to get into its wavelength. But then when you see the snow at the end and you know that John Huston is on oxygen, dying when he's making this film, it's like Soylent Green when Edward G. Robinson was dying, and he had a scene in the film where he was dying. There is something really.
There's a feeling of finality. Yeah.
And it makes it. It's not just the scene, but it makes it. Film is life, and life is film.